Okay, cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Michael Hughesby. I'm managing partner at TIL. We're a law firm. We mostly focus on investment funds, but we do other stuff too. And today we are going to talk about legal tech, various aspects of it, including the off the rack stuff that we use and some stuff that we're building ourselves. And then Lev is going to talk a little bit more about the industry in general and about what he's seeing. So I'll just briefly let Alfredo, Brett, and then Lev introduce themselves. Let's do that order. Alfredo.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, I'm Alfredo. I'm from Mexico. I work at TIL in the operation side. I basically take care of everything that is software IT, not in the hardcore part, but in the synchronization part, right? So I'm in that part. I also take care of finance, accounting, and marketing, basically.
Brett.
Welcome, everybody. Yeah.
Thanks, Alfredo. Hey, everyone. My name's Brett. I'm a data scientist. I've been working with TIL for the last 5 to 6 months or so, helping them build some legal tech, specifically an application called TIL Subscribe that I'll give you a quick demo of later on in the webinar.
I suppose that leaves me, right? My name
That's
is
it.
Lev Lufton, and I'm a lawyer. I spent 20 years working for different law firms, started out with Sullivan and Cromwell, and then was with Linklaters for a while, and resigned last year because I was fascinated by legal tech and started making angel investments in legal tech, and I'm very excited to talk about the space.
All right, cool. Let's do it. So the first part is I'm just going to walk through the software that we use that is developed by other people. Because in general, there's a lot of really good software out there. And we're only looking to build our own software to fill in gaps that don't already gaps that exist between already existing software. So I will briefly run through our overall tech stack, at least most of it. So for practice management, like many other small firms, we use a program called Clio. And Clio is split into two different parts. One is called Clio Manage, and that's kind of the firm management side. And the other part is called Clio Grow. And Clio Grow is more like a CRM. And so they both include stuff that you would normally include in practice management software. So for example, timekeeping, billing, contact management, things of that nature. A couple interesting things though. Clio Manage has a nice Matter Stages Kanban board. I don't know if that's how you say the word, Kanban board. So it's basically like Trello within Clio. And so that's very helpful. When I was in Big Law, it was kind of difficult to know what all the matters were. Sometimes you might forget about matters unless you had like a piece of paper on your desk telling you what matters you had. So there's never a question of what matters we have and to whom they are assigned. So using Clio Manage and the Matter Stages feature is very helpful. In Clio Grow, there's a nice way that you can create your own Clio forms. And this is, you can have clients or prospective clients fill out these forms. This whole workflow is something we'll go into a bit more detail now about having people fill out forms, especially prospects. That's what we'll talk about first here. Because when I started the firm, early last year, I had a very bad process for talking to prospects. It was a complete disaster. And essentially, we would get on the phone, I would get on the phone with basically anybody who wanted to talk to us, and that resulted in me having like 8 to 10 calls a day, and it was a complete disaster. So we needed to find a better way here to make the process of scheduling a call faster, and also make sure that everybody who we're talking to is completely qualified. So originally we used Clio Grow's form, which was fine. There's no problem with that. It worked. And you can just build out whatever questions you want. And so if you're just starting out and you're not doing anything like this, I think Clio Grow is pretty cheap. I forget how much it is, but it's pretty cheap. and you can use those Clio Grow forms. And then every time someone submits a form, it pops to your email and you see this is what they said, and then you can email them back. So that was that was the next step after we decided to talk to everybody. Then we had some questions like, we do investment funds large, at least that's the core of what we do. So we'd be like, what sort of vehicle are you raising? What asset class are you in? How much are you looking to raise? Tell us about yourself a little bit. And that by itself would take out, like half of the potential respondents. Maybe 6 months ago, something like that, we started using a piece of software called Lawbroker. And Lawbroker is really nice. So we used to have this contact us button, and then it would go to a Clio Grow form. Now we use something called Lawbroker, and it looks like this. So it looks way better than the Clio form. The Clio form just looked like, some Google form. So here you have kind of a responsive thing, like on the general part. Well, I don't want to put that information in. Oh, goodness. Well, I'm not gonna, well, whatever, who cares? We can put my phone number on here, just don't call me. So then it says, like, are you a new fund? We're a private equity fund. We're raising 100 million to 300 million. I like funds, and I haven't filled this out in a while. Oh, nice, Alfredo. I didn't know we had this at the end. Cool. So then it says, see if you want to join our newsletter or check us out on LinkedIn. Now, what happens now on the back end, and it's going to be too hard to like share all the screens and show you exactly what just happened, but what just happened is very exciting. So I just got an email from Lawbroker, which has a nice summary of all of these answers in a very, easy to read format. And so that in itself is good. It turns out like this style of getting people to fill out forms, it's like one question at a time. People don't get bored. It's a little bit better than the big Clio form at once. But then Alfredo is going to kind of explain briefly what we did next. So what happened before Alfredo worked his magic here is we would receive a form, and then we would basically decide what to do, and we might like draft them an email and send them the email. But now, Alfredo, how does it work now? You're on mute, Mr. Legal Tech.
Sorry. We currently are using Zapier for the intake process. And what basically does is it takes like 18 steps in the back office to process the lead. But in the reality, the lawyer, Michael in this case, he only has to read a little bit of information and click 2 buttons to qualify the client. So the process is the client fill out the form. We receive the notification with the information of the lead. And we have one button in the email which says qualify the client. And Michael reads the qualifications, the qualities of the client, or the lead, and assign different qualifications per lead, right? So he sends a priority 3, for example, email. He clicks on that button, and it automatically sends an email to the lead with pricing information, with a specific and tailored calendar link for the priority 3 leads, which assigns to the different parts of the law firm, right? So for example, if we assign a priority 1, it is going to redirect the lead to certain lawyers. And if we assign a priority 2 or priority 3, it is going to assign to another lawyers, right? So in that way, we can be more efficient in the intro call assignment process, without drafting the email, without attach the documents again, without asking for availability on the lawyer's side and all that sort of stuff, right? On the other side, in the backend, we are receiving a lot of information, and we are pre-training. Let's say we are just accumulating more information about the qualification of the clients, right? So I have a table with hundreds of leads, which already has a lot of these qualifications categorized, and also it has the priority that we gave to the lead. So in the future, with more information, we are going to be able to, or the plan in the future is to give this information to a LLM model and give more capabilities to this model and automatically send all the information without the requirement of the approbation of the lawyer. And also gave the power to the model to follow up and make more information in the case that the lead needs that, right?
Yeah. And so what Alfredo just mentioned is, we segment basically our intro calls. So some people we say we're not gonna, decline essentially, and then we send them an email. All this stuff is pre-written. We send like a pre-written sort of email to them. In some cases, we might ask for more information, in which case we have another pre-written email. And then the Zapier links go to these different priorities. And so now we'll kind of dive into Calendly a little bit. We have like an outrageous number of permutations of Calendly calls. And it does make things really easy, because like when I was in Big Law, like scheduling calls was just such a mess. It's like, hey, are you available? Are you available? I'm not available anymore, and neither am I. And you just go back and forth, and it takes forever. It's a humongous waste of time. So we've broken things out into different priorities for intro calls, mostly based on fund size. So for example, priority 1 is like me, and then like another one of our partners, and like one of our associates, and like priority 4 is like 2 of our associates, and things of that nature. And so it will just automatically send the link, the calendar link, to the proper call. It will also send a link to a video that we've recorded walking through our process, and it includes our pricing sheet. We find that sending pricing in advance is a very good thing to do because otherwise, we get through a nice call, like 28 minutes and minute 29. They're like, so this is going to be like $3,000 to set up a fund, right? And we're like, oh, this is probably isn't going to work out. So we find that sending pricing, even if it's, we are trying to build a machine over here, so we really do stick to flat fees, and we're comfortable with that. Even if you don't have that, just sending your hourly rate, if you're an hourly lawyer, something like that, will certainly head off a lot of calls that end up going nowhere if you don't do that in advance. One thing about Calendly is, like, there's this group of people, which is a big group of people, and they for whatever reason they just hate Calendly. And frankly, I don't get it. I think it's silly. But for the people that hate Calendly, I think they think it's like rude that you send them a calendar link. Like personally, I like to receive a calendar link because it's very fast. But what we do to appease these people who are Calendly grumps is, so what you can do is, you have this meeting, let's say this one's just with me, and you see here all our lovely faces in different combinations. What you can do to make yourself happy and also make the Calendly haters happy is, instead of just copying the link and popping that in the email, you can hit this share button, and then you go to add times to email. And then the polite thing to do is to change the time zone to wherever the person you're talking to is. So let's pretend they're in Eastern time. And then you just click the times that you want to do, blah, 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 and then continue, make sure you chose the right time zone, copy to clipboard, and then you can just paste this into an email. And so then it just shows them what time you're available. So it makes it a lot better. You don't have to talk to people, because like with some of these calls, look at this call. There's like 4 of us. It would take a long time to schedule that. Instead, we can just do share. Here are the times we're available. Game over. So that's basic. And we do that with, just normal client calls as well, as opposed to intro calls. But we find that Calendly is very useful for these purposes. So that's kind of the scheduling and lead management process. Some other stuff that we use, this isn't like very exciting. We use NetDocs for documents. The 2 options that most people use are NetDocs and iManage. I think you had to get like 10 or 15 licenses to do iManage, which now I guess would not be a problem. But when it was just me, I didn't want to buy 10 licenses. It's basically like iManage. So they're pretty much the same. For document automation, at one point we thought we were going to build this ourselves, and then we decided no. Now we use this thing called Gavel. Essentially, you can create very, very complicated, robust document automation workflows, which involve basically two parts to the process. One is there's a Microsoft Word integration, and that's where you do all the like brackets and like the if then, blah, blah, blah. You put that all in the Microsoft Word document. So you end up getting a Microsoft Word document that looks pretty ridiculous. Then in Gavel, you basically tie that to the Word document, and then Gavel will just ask you questions. So if we need to, prepare a new like SPV or something, we choose the SPV workflow. We check all the documents we need. So you can do multiple documents. So, we have lots of documents for any particular fund or SPV. So we might check like 10 boxes. These are the 10 documents we need. We type in the information. It maps to all 10 of the documents that we need. And then it gives us an output. Our documents, well, some of our documents are very, very complicated and very long. Gavel rarely gets us 100% of the way there. It theoretically could, but clients like different stuff. For the simple documents, it can get us 100% of the way there. So automating documents saves us a ton of time. Other options are like hot docs is another option. I used something called Woodpecker at one point, but it changed its name and I forget what it is now. Now we can talk about emails. Alfredo will talk about Superhuman in a second. I don't like Superhuman, so I don't use it, but Alfredo and some of our other team members just like love it. So alas, we pay for it. I use something called SaneBox. It's probably like email software for stupid people, so it works for me. It basically like automatically, and you train it, it'll sort emails to different folders. And so what they are, there's like one that's for news, it just sends it to news. There's one for later where it's like, we don't think this sender's that important, we just send it to later. That we don't usually do that with humans. It's like companies. Maybe Alfredo has sent me to later, but what I really like it for is you can come up with these boxes, which are called like sane and then like some amount of time period. So like I have like sane tomorrow, sane weekend, sane next week, sane next month, and I recently created sane 3 hours. And so basically you drag the email into this box and it goes away, and then it automatically pops back in your inbox after the allotted amount of time. I find it super helpful because I just get like crazy anxiety if there's too many emails in my inbox. So I just send them away and I deal with them later. And it's kind of like a productive way to procrastinate. So then only like, the 5 to 10 emails that are really important. I mean, I do what they tell you not to do, and I use it as my to-do list, but alas, that's where we are. And so it makes everything much more manageable. Alfredo, what does Superhuman do?
Yeah, Superhuman is
I guess I didn't.
basically the same, but with more capabilities and a really nice user experience dashboard, or let's say platform. It does the labeling and the categorization with AI too. It also has this sort of, I can like postpone the email if, I don't know, if I have to do something for tomorrow, I just tell Superhuman that remind me about this email for tomorrow, and erase the email today from the list of emails being pending to respond, right? But it also has another features like the AI text generation model in the email itself. So I can, for example, check grammar, or when I'm not that inspired to write an email, I just kind of try to get an inspiration from the AI model. Instead of just going to the ChatGPT and going forward and back, checking the text, I can just do it in Superhuman itself. Also has snippets. It's basically email forms, which I can just tell Superhuman with two keywords, 2 clicks to bring back the snippet, so I am not writing again all the email. And it has this interesting function where if I, for example, write attach, please find attached this document, Superhuman is not going to let me, or at least is going to warn me about the missing document if reads the attachment, if reads that I wrote attachment and I have not attached anything, it is going to warn me about it, right? So it's really functioning for just quality control on the email. What else? It also has an auto reminder function where, for example, if a conversation freezes out and nobody is responding, it's going to draft for me a follow-up email. So if I sent an invoice, for example, and the person didn't respond, 2 or 3 days later is going to outdraft a follow-up email saying, hey, how are you? I hope everything is okay. It is going, I think it's taken already my personal tone because I found the emails really well written. Basically, it does that. Like 2 or 3 days, it just pops up an auto reminder with the email already written down, right? And what else? I think it has more functionalities, but it's sometimes it's a lot. That's why some people doesn't like it because it requires a learning curve to take. But if you are used to shortcuts command in the MacBook or Windows, it can be pretty useful. Yeah.
All right. Last thing for documents, there's this company called Litera, and they have all sorts of stuff. The two things that we use, one is Litera Compare. This is just redlining software like you would have seen in Big Law. So that's not super exciting. The other one we use though is Litera Check. Litera Check is fantastic. I think it's like $800 or something, but it's worth it. You basically you run a Litera check, and then it runs like a definitions check, a sections check, a spell check, and it comes over in this little side of the Word document for you. And then so like if you added some provisions but you forgot to add it to the definition section, it'll yell at you. I find it very helpful. Like our process is, run a Litera check every time before you send like a long document like an LPA or PPM or subdocs or something out to a client. It's really quite nice. For communication, we use Slack. We basically have some general channels, and then we have a channel for each matter that we're working on. And so different people are assigned to the matter channels, depending on who's working on the matter. We also have all sorts of automated stuff jumping around in Slack. So we have like Blue Sky filing reminders. We have Alfredo's developing something that yells at you if the time entry that you tried to enter into Clio is missing something. So it'll be like, hey, you forgot the matter, fix it. So it'll just automatically yell at you in Slack. We also have a nice feature where every time somebody schedules a call in Calendly, we have basically like a Calendly call RSS feed. And so that's helpful for me, especially because I'm not on all the calls, like the intro calls and such. So if it's like, oh, like they scheduled a call with Kyle and Kareem, like two of our associates, then I know what's going on automatically. So we try to automate a lot of stuff to Slack. That's also where a lot of memes, GIFs, and nonsense occurs, which is important. Last up from me, what do we do about, AI? I don't know, like what's AI, what's not AI. I mean, with respect to generative AI, we use something called GCAI. We spent a little bit trying to decide what to use here. Ultimately, ChatGPT is good, but it lies a little bit too much. And more importantly, we just came to the conclusion that we can't put our documents into it. Maybe you can get comfortable that you can do that, but for like rules of professional conduct, that sort of thing, we eventually reached the conclusion that we shouldn't be dropping, client-specific documents that we draft or receive into ChatGPT for confidentiality reasons. So there's various, legal specific generative AI platforms, which are rules of professional conduct compliant. GCAI is one, Harvey is one, CoCounsel, which is the Westlaw, is one. Ultimately, GCAI was very good, and it was just very easy to use and very easy to buy. And so that's part of the reason why we did it. With co-counsel, it was like, here's our representative and let's go through all these meetings. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to give you a proposal. And it's like $10 million, you know, and it's just like, it was just like a very, I don't know, like no disrespect to Westlaw. It was just like not a, it was a very like clunky onboarding experience. And I get it, you know, they're probably like selling to, you know, like Latham and Wilson Sonsini and whatever. And they're probably dealing with people who are fine with that process. But with us, it's just like with GCI, it's like get a demo, you use it for 10 days. If you like it, you keep paying. We kept paying. And it works very well. It's a bit slower than ChatGPT, but it lies less and it's not going to send us to jail as far as rules of professional conduct perspective. All right, so next two things, Alfredo is just going to briefly talk about what we're up to as far as something that we're making ourselves, some stuff in the TIL kitchen. You're on mute again.
Yes, sure. Let me share my screen a little bit to present you this really simple diagram, which is basically the plan or what are we currently doing regarding. Okay, we start this effort as one of the principles that we are trying to follow here in the company is not hire people to replace ourselves, but instead trying to build something to replace the repetitive task or that part of the role that is it's repetitive, right? So at the beginning, I started an effort to try to build an automatic way to report KPIs and different metrics to the rest of the team. Because at the beginning, I was doing it manually. I process the data in an Excel, then I clean up the data, and then just take a screenshot of the Excel and just send it to the team. In the effort to try to replace me in that task, I started with an engineer, Mario, developing a tail dashboard, okay, which turned out to have a lot of discoveries about what we can do with the APIs, because naturally with all the platforms, the first thing that we have to do was connect the APIs to a centralized database, so I can pull the data and then process the data and then have an automatic way to present the data to the dashboard. And we realized that the APIs weren't offering more than just data. So we started to thinking about connecting all these platforms: ClearManage, ClearGrow, QuickBooks, Cable, Beehive, and Lawbroker, and at the beginning just to present the data. But in the future, we have plans to connect. Well, we already connected to Supabase, but we have plans to connect to NAN and other LLM models, or hard code software which connects to other LLM models, and present this not just for the lawyers at the firm, but also for the clients, for example. And for instance, if a client is running a process of fund, we had this effort like 5 months ago about this pizza tracker, which basically shows the client in what part of the process the fund is. So we have more clarity and we have more certain about when are you going to close, when the client can call the capital and stuff like that. So we designed this pizza tracker, but it's manual, right? Because it doesn't have the connections to the other platforms to understand where are we in the process of the fund formation. So right now it's manual. But in the future, with the APIs legacy app, for example, in Supabase, we're going to be able to show to the lawyers the KPIs, to the client the KPIs, and also have back office functionalities to control and to have a better management of the information. Then after that, we are going to develop, or the plan is to develop a way to modify or to give powers, let's say, or gave functions to LLM models to modify the database itself. So, for example, if we receive a payment from, and it's shown in QuickBooks, the first thing that the AI is going to do is to match the QuickBooks payment with the Clio managed invoice, because right now there's no integration, there's no API that can do that. I have to do it manually, right? So the AI is going to notice the client and the time and the amount, and it is going to conciliate that transaction. And in the future, it can also, for example, do a follow-up reminder until the QuickBooks payment is recorded. For example, if I tell him, I don't know, a bot in Slack, prepare an invoice phase 3 for this client, the bot is going to take the information from Clio Grow and Clio Manage and say, okay, the amount for this client is, I don't know, $20,000. Is going to prepare the invoice, is going to send the email, and is going to set a next follow-up items for the client in the case that the client doesn't pay in X amount of time. And when that happens, it's going to be pending, or what the client pays, it's going to record the payment and maybe send another email and send a notification to us, conciliate automatically, and that sort of stuff. In the part of the controlling, we can also have more a second AI check-in system where it's not just one AI doing the conciliation, but also another one doing the controlling of the transaction. So we have two models making one making the transaction and the other one making the auditing of the transaction. And it has to, for example, takes information from Gabel, where the engagement letter is. So this audit model is going to check that the Clio Manage, the QuickBooks, and the Gabel information matches. So, okay, everything matches here, everything is okay. If something is wrong, then we have to do something. And it's going to send a notification from one of the members of the back office team, or me in this case, and it's going to say me fix it. Or another, for example, is the bot that Michael mentioned, and the billing time, is sometimes a lot of time entries, a lot of information, and it's really hard to manage when something is wrong. When Clio has this way to do it, that you click on start reporting the time, but it sometimes it records the time without asking for matter or without asking for description. So sometimes it's just blank time. So that type of error, an LLM model can just audit a little bit in the Supabase table and say, hey, this time entry is missing information. Let's say a message with a message in Slack saying that this time for this matter, or this time that you enter this day, is missing this specific information. So that sort of stuff we can do it. And also in the future develop something for the client, maybe more, well, yeah, blah 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 blah. I don't want to extend it more. But yeah, another function that we can do is to onboard external consulting or external lawyer work. So we can, for example, consult on the conflicts check and make sure that everyone is in compliance in that matter. We can also have more control on origination fees, or sharing the payment of the work and stuff like that in another dashboard. The end of this platform is going to be one main dashboard with a login and differentiation between type of clients or type of users. One is going to be for the members of the firm with specific dashboards and KPIs and specific action items. One view for the client, which shows, and maybe we can integrate the development that Brett is doing, and and he's going to talk a little bit more about it. And another one for external consulting, right? So everything is in the same place. And this is the effort. This is right now is just going to be for presenting the information, but in the future we have plans to integrate with other platforms, so we have more AI and more LLM power in the firm. And I think that's it.
All righty, Mr. Young.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. Alfredo, do you mind if I share my screen for this part?
Sure thing.
Thank you. All right. So hello again, everyone. Like I said earlier, my name's Brett. I'm a data scientist that's been working with TIL for about 5 or 6 months now. We've been developing this JavaScript application to help streamline the subscription agreement process of setting up a fund. So our ultimate goal was just to save time. Michael reached out and said that a lot of time was being wasted going back and forth between lawyers and investors, trying to get these subscription agreements filled out to completion and also filled out correctly. So a big part of what this application does is apply a bunch of conditional logic to each of the questions to make sure there's no inconsistencies in the responses that an investor is filling out on their subscription agreement. And it's also just doing a baseline check to make sure that the answers the investor provided meet the qualifications to invest in the particular fund. So the first thing the user will do, what we're looking at here is the production environment for our application. So this is what our pilot phase of investors filled out when they were using TIL Subscribe for the first time. First thing you do is select your investor type. So are you just an individual investing in the fund? Are you a joint tenancy, a married couple investing in the fund? And these other options as well, including any other entity, so like a corporation or other trusts. And each of these forms, depending on what the investor chooses, will route them to a slightly different version of the form based on the information needed for that investor type. So I won't go into too much detail about each line of information being collected, but it starts with some demographic information, financial information about the amount they plan to invest, contact form if they want the lawyers to reach out to any other potential investors. And then we have, for individual, I believe there's 4 parts: Part D, regulation matters; Investment Advisor Act matters; Qualified Purchaser matters; and miscellaneous matters. Each of these questions in some way is linked to conditional logic that ensures that when the investor fills out the form, that there's no inconsistencies and that the form they're sending back to TIL is correct and complete. The last thing it does is it collects the banking information as well and the signature. And if it's a joint tenancy, for example, there will be 2 signatures required because you need a signature from each spouse. So all of that logic that would go into filling out the form correctly is pre-built in to the application. And when the user hits submit, if they filled out everything correctly, there will be no error messages, and they'll get a final PDF that outputs. I believe for the pilot phase, the PDF was about 150 pages total. And this information gets passed to a bunch of different pages within that document. So from the user's perspective, they fill out this one form, which is just a couple pages total, and it parses the information, sends it to the proper place in a 100+ page document. So this was our pilot phase. This second tab here is our development platform. So this is where we're doing our current enhancements, trying to get this more built out before we have another fund to use this for their subscription agreement process. What we've added recently is user authentication. So I won't do the code version just because I don't want to open my email on the webinar. But if I log in via Google, it's a very simple process. It pulls in my Google account information that I have set to public. And then you can see we're also, with user authentication, we're able to add in role-based access control. So what that'll do is allow us to have an admin view. So if anyone from TIL wants to log into TIL Subscribe, they can see all of the different forms and funds that we've set up in TIL, versus if we had a specific user login who's only investing in one fund, their view of the website of the application would be specific to whichever fund they're invested in. So as we continue to add more funds, we just set up different logic trees for each user and give them access to only the information for the funds that they're in. Other future enhancements that we're working on is having document storage built into the application. That way investors can fill out the form, and then the fund manager can go access the filled out form and sign it themselves. Get even more of the process done within the single page application. And the other thing we're working on is setting up a backend API to collect data and then create a dashboard for each user based on that data. And the dashboard will show them how far along in the process of setting up the fund that the fund is. It'll show how much they've invested. It'll show which funds they're in, etc. So that's all in the near future. And we plan to keep building this out with the goal of saving time and making sure that each investor in the fund is qualified to be there.
All right. Yeah. And so basically in summary, the stuff we're building is like stuff that's like very specific to our our unique practice and what we need. Because there are things that do, similar to what TIL Subscribe does. Typically clients have to pay for it. So smaller clients won't pay for it. And so if they don't pay for it, then we basically have to do stuff with PDFs, which is a big mess and wastes a lot of time. So that's why we built this software. The other software that Alfredo's building is, we're building it because as far as we know, it doesn't exist. And so it's something that will make our own lives a lot more efficient. All right, Lev, let's go to you, sir. So you left big law, you left being a fancy partner at a fancy law firm to be a legal tech investor. Why did you choose legal tech?
Before I answer that question, Michael, let me just say I'm very impressed by the tech stack that you guys have. And I always knew that you were a progressive individual, but this looks like a very sort of tech-enabled firm. By the standards of what I'm seeing, this is definitely impressive. So to answer your question, now before I became a lawyer at a fancy law firm and so on and so forth, I trained as an economist. And over the course of my entire legal career, 2 decades long, I always thought to myself that everything we do as lawyers is pretty much inefficient. We take great pride in our work, and as well we should. We're faced with complicated issues. We devise ingenious solutions to them. But so much of what we do as lawyers is repetitive, cumbersome, and frankly unnecessary. And that's why you guys are building all those cool solutions to get rid of the tedium in the legal work. My M&A practice was centered on TMT and financial institutions, and I was really impressed by both the tech and the way the financial institutions have reinvented themselves. Look, you'd be hard-pressed to find another sector that has managed to remain so immune to technology as the legal profession, right? Even if you would consider the other professions that are typically seen as conservative, medical profession, right? Have you been to the doctor's office lately? I mean, the intake is automatic. The information flow is seamless. It's incredible. The equipment is so high tech. Finance, I mean, Venmo, Stripe, algorithmic trading, all of it, and it's all basically the past couple of decades, really. Now, comparing this to our profession, and I'm not talking about you guys, you are well ahead of the curve. We're still doing hand markups, right? We're printing out emails. putting them in our inboxes and so on and so forth. I'm exaggerating, but only
No,
slightly.
you know what? I can't help myself, Lev. One of our associates was, came from Big Law, as many of us did. And he said that, 2 years ago, he had a partner who scanned in a hand markup to him, and it was like a 40-page markup. And the way that they did it was he received 40 different PDFs in the email. This
You know
stuff
what?
is out there right now.
I'm guilty of having done that in the past.
Was
When
it
I would mark when I would mark up a document on the phone, sorry, on the plane, and I would
Yeah.
basically take pictures of each individual
Yeah.
page, and then I would like I tried to send it as one email, but yeah, I've done that. Yeah. We're a low tech profession, but don't get me wrong, right? I loved what I did, and I'm very fond of the profession. I just feel that there are ways to improve service delivery and processes, and to do that, we need a change of mindset, and that's why I want to invest in legal tech. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any particular areas of, the legal profession or like the workflow of what we do that you think is most likely to be changed or disrupted?
The short answer, and the completely inadequate one, is that when I imagine the legal landscape, I know that virtually every single aspect of the way law firms and legal departments operate can and should be improved, right? In my personal view, this is especially true with respect to the non-billable aspects of the practice, the admin and training and all of that. Now, the time-tested model that we always used, all of us in Big Law, was learning by observing, apprenticeship style, learning by doing under the supervision of senior lawyers. I'd say this is probably not going to cut it in the near future, right? Some law firms have already made substantial investments in training programs, but still, it's a pretty slow progress. These are expensive to build and difficult to maintain. If I'm completely honest, many law firms still use the same materials that were developed years ago. Maybe after a quick refresh, just to make sure that the law hasn't changed, but it's also still the same PowerPoint that was presented to us as trainees, and then we presented it as senior lawyers or partners, and so on and so forth. So, but at the same time, a legal tech educational AI platform can generate sort of hundreds of examples, realistic scenarios in minutes, right? And can be trained to or simulate the behavior of many different agents and actors, negotiations, witness statements, judges, all of that, right? And provides instantaneous feedback, which, as we know, is at a premium. Try getting feedback from a busy partner. You'd have to knock him on the head with a hammer first. A law firm marketing, business development, equally in need of an upgrade. We still put pitches together manually. We use templates, but that's basically a very basic starting point. Then there's a list of credentials in Excel. And I have no doubt that a basic AI model with a very simple vector database or graph database can streamline this process and help business development teams and the practice operate a lot more efficiently. And hopefully the business development team no longer needs to pull all-nighters preparing RFPs and responding RFPs and preparing pitches. On the practice side, look, everything, right? Diligence, document review, and the list just goes on and on. And you've touched on some of it, right? Conflicts checks, compliance, regulatory. It's the same questions over and over again. The variation is very low. So yeah, there's a lot to be done.
And have you seen any specific products or companies or services that have started to do this well, other than the ones I guess that I mentioned earlier
I
on the call?
I have seen things that left me with my jaw on the floor, Michael. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? I would like to say that I'm sort of expressing personal views. I personally liked some of the companies and products that I'm talking about, but obviously there is no guarantee that these products are suitable for everyone in their particular situation. Some of them are expensive, some of them are inexpensive, some of them are still working towards their security compliance. You've touched on that. That's very important. Making sure that sort of confidential client information doesn't end up on the web, all of that. Look, I was blown away by, say, a product called Trial Kit, right? It's a trial prep solution for criminal cases, and the capabilities are just insane. So the law firm user uploads all kinds of evidence, documents, handwritten notes, images, audio files, video, right? And then you can sift through this mountain of evidence with tremendous accuracy. At least that's the demo that I saw. You ask the system to find references to a light-colored vehicle, and it tells you in a matter of seconds that there's a light-colored vehicle in such and such a video, such and such a moment. There is a police officer in a garbled audio recording mentioning seeing a gray or a beige car. A witness statement talks about a white car turning the corner for a few seconds before or after the crime was committed, right? I always thought that sort of the special services might have something like this, the FBIs of the world, but I didn't realize that there is a civilian version of it. Single Source Technologies, a company that acts as a due diligence system of record and analysis, built sort of primarily for the private equity sector, but in my mind, sort of useful for pretty much any serial deal maker, enables deal teams to benefit from the historical learnings hidden in the decades of due diligence reports and tracks the current due diligence processes, understands what the issues are and how they compare to prior transactions, how they're reflected in documentation. I mean, the product is just amazing. And I don't have any investments in the two companies that I mentioned, and one of the companies that I have invested in as an angel is called Ranking Copilot, and I'd say it takes 90% out of the pain of creating submissions to legal directories. As a partner, I used to be responsible for business development and marketing, and I know firsthand how incredibly manual, incredibly painful this process is. Hundreds of different nuances need to be taken into account. Their solution helps tremendously, even in its current form, and with the roadmap that they have, I wouldn't be surprised if pretty much every single law firm in the world could use it eventually. There are form builders. Some of the stuff that you were showing is very impressive that you built it. Form builders are a sub-vertical in legal tech. I like a company called Gap App. They recently publicized my investment in them, but I also sort of I try to act as an advisor to those companies. So sub-verticals, due diligence, for instance. Wow, I saw the product of Marveri, for instance. I think that it replaces a month of work with a few minutes. There are others, Diligence is a good one. So many good companies to mention. I could go on for hours, but one thing I will say is that what we're talking about is basically traditional workflows being sort of automated, being improved. The good thing about this space is that it also creates things that have never existed before, right? Digital clones of lawyers, proof of human relationship as a service, all of that. It's fascinating.
Yeah. What is proof of human relationship as a service? What does that mean?
Oh, you know what? I was recently talking to a founder, somebody who comes more from a technology background than a legal background, but it's a company called Bonded. And this founder, Glenn, he came up with this incredible idea. The use case, the sort of the most typical use case, I think. And I apologize to Glenn if he ever sort of sees this video, if I'm misinterpreting his product, but the basic idea is in an immigration context, for instance, you have situations where you need to prove that two people have been together for a certain period of time, right? A spousal visa, if you will.
Mhm.
And that's just one of the use cases.
Got it, yeah.
What it does is it kind of links the devices of these two people, and then it creates an immutable, tamper-free record, which actually goes on some fancy blockchain, which allows the AI processing. Glenn said that there's only one of those. It's amazing. And that information is available to you as, let's say, the immigration lawyer when you are compiling the submission to the immigration authorities.
Got it.
Stuff that would, look, immigration lawyers used to spend days getting people to recall where they were together, finding photos, all of it basically just appears automatically. Amazing stuff,
Interesting.
really.
Yeah, interesting. I had to do that. But anyways, cool. So are you seeing much traction in law firms? Are people actually doing this?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And hey, you've bought products.
That's true. We bought lots
Gavel,
of
Litera,
products.
GCAI, wonderful product, by the way. I agree with you. There are so many similar products. GCAI is probably one of the better ones.
Yeah. And it's not just for GCs, maybe they
no,
should
no, it's
change,
pretty.
they should maybe change their name, because like
Hey,
it's
it's
perfectly
common.
good for a law firm.
It's common in legal tech. Yeah, it's common in legal. So yeah, look, there are many startups that are very successful, many generating sort of revenues in excess of $1 million a year. Some generate more, $5 million a year. But adoption takes time, right? A lot of the startups I'm looking at are still in the early days, and they're more in pilots and so on. But I have no doubt they will be successful.
Nice. Very good. All right. Well, we managed to do our 30-minute webinar in 60 minutes. I will take at least some of the blame for that. I know there's some questions, but alas, I actually have a call starting in 1 minute. But what we'll do is we will answer the questions that are in the chat. There's 5 of them. We'll answer them in the follow-up email. So in the follow-up email that we'll send to you guys, we'll have a link to the video, and we can also include links to all of the software that we mentioned here. Unfortunately, we don't get any money for putting the links down. Probably we should, but alas, you'll get them for free. If you guys have any follow-up questions that maybe you want us to answer in the follow-up email that we'll send, you can shoot those over. If you send them soon, then we'll include them. Again, we're TIL. We form funds. If you need to form a fund, let us know. And thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining, Lev, as well.
Thank you for having me, Michael. And you're good at forming funds.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Here's
Thanks,
the
everyone.
endorsement. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.